Hi, this is Dr. Todd Austin from Austin Family Chiropractic in Verdon, Illinois. And thank you for joining me on this special episode of ColdLaser.tv. This is a video that's going to be with the series I'm doing for the at-home cold laser therapy device, which you can see me holding here. And so this ties in with what we've got going on. I'm filming this on March 31st of 2020. And this is during the Coronapocalypse, as I'm calling it, where we have a coronavirus that's, running throughout the world, and then we have the mass hysteria on top of that. People are locked in their homes, and like I said, it's March 31st. And we've been told that we're pretty much on lockdown, as they call it here in Illinois, until April the 30th, which is another month. People in Virginia today just got word that they're going to be on lockdown until June the 10th, actually. So people are going to be stuck in their homes, and for the most part, that's not going to be good on their immune systems. So as chiropractors, as healthcare providers, as acupuncture practitioners, as cold laser therapists, we need to be teaching our patients and friends, family members, things that they can do while they're on lockdown or house arrest or whatever your state is calling it. My state's calling it lockdown, as I said. So I'm going to kind of tie this in with taking you back to ancient China, back in the days before transportation. Back in the days that before a woman was allowed to get married, she had to demonstrate certain acupressure or acupuncture skills. Because if her husband-to-be got sick, there wasn't a doctor on every corner, she had to know how to take care of some of these issues. So if her husband got the flu, let's say, she had to know how to care for him so he didn't die. Once they got married and had kids, if their children got sick, Joey got a sniffle or Susie got a cold, whatever the case may be, she had to care for them as well. What I'm going to teach you guys is what I call the first two Sunderlage patterns. Dr. Jon Sunderlage was my primary acupuncture mentor. He's one of the guys that he was a chiropractor from Elgin, Illinois, up in the Chicago area. He was one of the original group of chiropractors in the early 1970s during the Nixon administration that went over to China, left their practices, left their families, went over to China as a group of chiropractors, studied under some of the Chinese masters in Oriental medicine and acupuncture over there, and then a year or two later they all came back and they brought acupuncture to the U.S. So that's why we have an acupuncture profession here now, and that's why a lot of chiropractors like myself are trained in the practice of acupuncture as well. So anything that we can do with needles, as far as the meridian points that we stimulate, we can also work with devices like an at-home laser to stimulate as well. Okay, so the first pattern I'm going to talk to you folks about, the first Sunderlage pattern, what he calls pattern 1, is the ileocecal valve pattern or the ICV pattern. So I have a video that I just did about that called the ileocecal valve pattern, but I'm just going to give you a little more insight here. So that would be similar to the information that women needed to know in ancient China before they were allowed to get married or have kids. So the ileocecal valve pattern is something we would do really whenever the weather changes. We should do an ileocecal valve pattern. It's basically our primary energy balancing pattern. So whenever the energy or the chi within the meridians gets out of whack, we check at the ileocecal valve. If there's tenderness there, it tells us that we need to do that pattern. And then once we've done that pattern, usually we come back the next day or the day after and we check. If there's no tenderness there, then we can move on to pattern 2, which we call the master points pattern. So what happens is if someone is getting sick, that's another reason that we would do the pattern. If we just want to make sure that our immune system is functioning as good as possible. We check if there's any tenderness there. We do the first pattern, the ileocecal valve pattern. If someone comes to you and they are sick, I've been sick a few days, doc, or I've had this lingering sinus thing for 2 weeks, whatever the case may be, check the ICV. If there's an issue, then we need to do that pattern, okay? So, like I said in that other video, I talk about all the points, all the 8 points we use to treat the ICV pattern. Once we've treated the ICV pattern, and then a day or two later we recheck at the ICV area, and there is no tenderness, that's the point. Then we go to the next pattern up, which is pattern 2 of the Sunderlage patterns, or the master point pattern. So I'm going to shoot a video about that one as well here in the coming days. Master point pattern has 6 points it shares in common with the ileocecal valve pattern, or pattern 1, but there are 2 other points that are added in as well, so we'll get into that in that video. But when we get into the master point pattern, then we can also add some local points. Now keep in mind, both of these patterns, one of the amazing things about these patterns is that all the points in those patterns are either below the elbows or below the knees. So all the points are below the elbows and below the knees. Therefore, we don't have to gown up. Just roll our sleeves up, roll our pants legs up, and we can reach all the points. But when we get to master point patterns, then we can also add in some local points. So let's say we had a shoulder issue, we could add in some shoulder points. We had an elbow issue, we could add in some elbow points. We had a sinus issue, we could add in some sinus points. So that's what I mean by local points. But with the ICV pattern, pattern 1, we simply just treat those eight points. So if your elbow hurts, well, that's too bad, but when we're doing ICV pattern, we just stick to those 8 points. We're not going to put any specific points in the local area of your elbow, let's say. But come pattern 2, a couple of days later, when we do that, then we can definitely add those local points in for the treatment of, like I said, something like elbow pain in that case. That's how those patterns work. So in my clinic, we have actually 5 acupuncture patterns that we do, and I stick to the Sunderlage patterns pretty much. Pattern 1 and pattern 2, like I said, they're all below the elbows and below the knees, which is great. Pattern 3, we have to have a lot of points down the back of the spine and into the back of the legs. It's hard to do those points on ourselves. Really, when we get to a pattern 3, 4, or 5, I'd recommend that you see your chiropractor or acupuncture practitioner and have them do those points. But for the most part, we can manage a lot of things with pattern 1 and pattern 2 without having to go to the healthcare provider unless necessary. So that's kind of how I'm going to treat this, for this video, realizing that we're filming this during the Coronapocalypse. You guys are going to be shut-ins. Your immune system is going to maybe not be as good as it would have been if you were outside, interacting with other people more, being exposed to different things. So when we're depressed, which a lot of people are depressed now, that can lower our immune response. When maybe we're not eating properly, that can lower our immune response. So there's just a lot of things going on with you, whether you're an American or anywhere else around the world right now, to kind of be in the downy dumps about. Definitely one thing we need to do is take care of our family members, do the ileocecal valve pattern on each other. When they graduate up to pattern 2, do the master points pattern on each other. And the at-home laser is a great device for doing both of those patterns. So if you would like to get one of these, I do not sell them, but my daughter Zorah does. Please contact me. My email address is draustin@royal.net, or the phone number here at the clinic is 217-965-3100. Of course, you can also contact me through my personal Facebook page or my clinic Facebook page as well. There is one other thing I wanted to throw in talking about the ileocecal valve. So the ileocecal valve is like a flap where the small intestine meets or dumps into the large intestine. So our food goes through the stomach, through the small intestine, and then it goes through that ileocecal valve, that flap, into the large intestine. Now once the food goes through there, that flap or that ileocecal valve is supposed to close shut so that the food that's gone from the small intestine into the large intestine stays there. It's not supposed to back up and come back from the large intestine back into the small intestine. So I'm going to use this door as an example. So it's kind of like, here's the small intestine on this side of the door, and there's the large intestine as we open the door to go into that room. So my hand's in the small intestine, now it's in the large intestine. But what happens is when that food goes through there, and then that valve is supposed to close, like this door closing and latching, and push against it and it's still closed. But the ileocecal valve not working correctly, some people also could call this leaky gut syndrome. You may have heard that term, leaky gut syndrome. And what that can mean as well is that this door just doesn't seal properly. So we've got, some wiggle room there. The door's not all the way closed, so the food that's now gone through the small intestine into the large intestine, some of that is allowed to come back through here, and that's not a good thing. So like I said, that would be the equivalent of leaky gut syndrome. So one of the ways that we can nip that in the bud is to do this lleocecal valve pattern, and then once we recheck the patient and there's no tenderness there the next day or the following day at the lleocecal valve, then that means that we've gotten that valve to close, at least temporarily, and then more healing can take place in the body once that is closed. So the Chinese and in Ayurvedic medicine, which comes from India, so in Chinese medicine and in Ayurvedic medicine, they both said, look to the intestines. If there's some unforeseen problem in the body, and let's say the medical doctors are missing it, look to the digestive system, look to the intestines. And a lot of times the lleocecal valve, taking care of that, making sure that that valve is closing properly and not staying open, a lot of times that will do a lot to take care of a lot of underlying health problems that people are having. So that is some definite information that you'd want to know about the ileocecal valve. Ileocecal valve not closed. Ileocecal valve closed. Two more things on the Sunderlage patterns, and that is the ileocecal valve and the master points patterns. Don't get me wrong from what I said earlier, they would be valuable to go see your chiropractor and or your acupuncture practitioner to get those done in the clinic setting. Sometimes needles, acupuncture needles, offer like a spiritual component to it, a more relaxing component. A lot of people fall asleep when they have the needles in, and it's very relaxing. Some will say it's the most relaxing time they've had in since the last visit for that. And so that is a valuable thing. But like I said, with what we have going on here in 2020, it's best that my patients and Zorah's laser clients know how to do these patterns at home as well. So that's why I present it that way. The other thing is I talked about the local points. So you guys that have access to the at-home cold laser playlist, video library, you've seen that there's a lot of the local points that I've taught you already in the sinus protocol, in the lower extremity pain protocol, and in the upper extremity pain protocol. But if you have any other issues, and of course you're stuck at home with what's going on right now, and you need to know some local points, feel free to reach out to me, assuming that you're one of my patients or you're one of Zorah's clients for the cold lasers, and I'll be happy to help you out and tell you what local points you should be doing. So anything that I can do to help you guys through this, I'm all for it. So thank you for watching and have a terrific day. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you got a lot of information out of this, and I wish you and your family the best as we get through the rest of the calendar year 2020, dealing with the coronavirus and all that entails. So stay safe, stay healthy, and happy lasering.